Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Maximum Effort. This is going to be my new Deadpool, Marvel, X-Men, Disney Plus video. There were a couple big announcements and some cool stuff that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman were doing last week. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We'll do a new Amazon giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and let me know what you want them to do with Deadpool in the MCU. Really big stuff first, just starting with number 5. If you didn't see what was going on, recently Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds were celebrating the anniversary of the first X-Men movie from 2000. They just started adding the Marvel X-Men movies to Disney Plus recently too. I know a lot of you were asking about that. To mark the occasion, Hugh Jackman posted this funny video of himself behind the scenes on the first X-Men movie fighting a Wolverine action figure wearing the classic yellow costume from the comics.
Last time I jumped up.
God, he's good. He's fast. He's too good. Oh, he's mesmerized me.
The joke there is that Hugh Jackman is just making fun of himself from that first movie because when he took the job as Wolverine, he didn't know how hard it would be to get in shape to play him and run around shirtless through most of that movie. So they had to film him in really weird ways just to hide that he wasn't super swole yet until the last few weeks of filming 6 months later when he had finally gotten huge enough. As you probably remember, this scene that they were filming right here was him escaping from the medbay after Famke's Jean Grey starts checking him out. So I know a lot of you were asking me about all the Disney Plus account X-Men posts the past week, because the Disney Plus social accounts, just in general, were posting a ton of X-Men stuff to get everyone hyped up for MCU, Marvel X-Men, and X-Men the Animated Series, which is also on Disney Plus right now. They just really want you to think about X-Men being on Disney Plus. But the bigger deal is actually all about Deadpool 3 and the Deadpool movies. So Hugh Jackman was also posting about himself in X-Men Days of Future Past to celebrate when that movie came to Disney Plus last week. He's been posting a lot of X-Men Wolverine stuff the past couple of weeks and doing a couple interviews. I've already done a couple Wolverine videos on my channel about that stuff, so I'll add links in the description. But when that happened, both he and Ryan Reynolds went on about how it's the first movie of any kind, not just a Marvel movie, to air on Disney Plus completely uncensored. So the reason this is a big deal is because Hugh Jackman gets pretty naked on screen and drops a couple F-bombs. There's a little bit of other language, it's just that the F-bombs are usually where Disney draws the line in terms of content on Disney Plus. So number 4, of course, Ryan Reynolds chiming in, appropriately joining by saying that it's time to do the same thing for Deadpool, meaning putting the Deadpool movies on Disney Plus once the legacy deals expire. No matter what, Disney can't put movies or TV shows on Disney Plus if they're still under licensing deals with, say, like Netflix or other streaming outlets and broadcasters. That's why X-Men Days of Future Past is the only X-Men movie on Disney Plus right now. The other X-Men movies are just stuck under deals with other places that haven't expired yet, but by next year, most of the X-Men movies will be on there. The big question when Disney was still in the middle of buying Fox last year and getting all the X-Men characters back was what they would do with Deadpool, because he's a rated R franchise to begin with. First, the Disney CEO, then Kevin Feige, the Deadpool writers, all said pretty much the same thing, that they would be allowed to continue making rated R Deadpool movies, so Deadpool 3 would at least at first be rated R. But when it came to Disney Plus, it was a little bit different. The Disney CEO said last year that they had no plans to put the Deadpool movies on Disney Plus because they were rated R, and at the time they wanted to keep Disney Plus firmly PG-13, because at first most of the people buying Disney Plus were families with young children that wanted that library Disney content. Now it's a little bit different because they have big programming like the Marvel Disney Plus shows. They have The Mandalorian, which is blown up huge, coming into The Mandalorian Season 2. So you have a lot of older people, middle-aged people that are now starting to buy into Disney Plus finally. But last year after it launched, there were a few movies that were PG-13 on Disney Plus that they still wound up censoring language and violence out of a little bit. PG-13 isn't really that violent or gratuitous, but somehow Disney still found stuff to trim out. That all changed this past week with X-Men Days of Future Past, 100% uncensored, full-on, naked Hugh Jackman walking through frame like it's no big deal, dropping F-bombs all over the place in Disney's backyard, and they're totally cool with it. So 3, Ryan Reynolds is basically saying that they found a way to bend time and space with the Infinity Gauntlet and get the Deadpool movies on Disney Plus eventually. Even get Deadpool 3 on there too when it gets made in a couple years. Obviously, we're still a ways off from them making Deadpool 3. But it's also further confirmation that they intend on making a Deadpool 3 movie if there were any doubters that were still out there. A while ago, there were a bunch of Rob Liefeld Twitter posts and interviews. He claimed that Marvel was never going to make Deadpool 3, they had no intention of doing it, right after Ryan Reynolds literally said on national television that they were in the middle of working on the movie. So that should be your first clue that the movie's actually happening. Ryan Reynolds spent most of last year going to meetings at Marvel, starting to figure out their early work. So then Morena Baccarin came out a little while ago too and said that she hadn't really heard much about her role in Deadpool 3 because they were still in the middle of writing the movie. So the fact that they're writing Deadpool 3 should be a clue that they're making Deadpool 3. I think when Marvel got all those characters back last year, people just expected Deadpool 3 to happen right away, which isn't the case. Marvel already has the next 3 to 5 years mapped out in terms of which movies they're doing, even though the virus kind of added a year to that because of all the delays. There might be a few changes towards the end of that schedule, but for the most part, all these movies in Marvel Phase 4 and the Marvel Phase 5 schedule have been decided. If you look at the Phase 5 schedule here, which before the virus was just 2022 and 2023, the first part of Marvel Phase 5, not the entire Marvel Phase 5, some of these movies they still haven't publicly announced yet, but based on other sources, these are what I think some of those are going to be. Like Spider-Man 4 has already been confirmed by Sony, even though they haven't put a date on it yet. It's probably going to be happening here. The Marvel reboot of Fantastic Four is probably happening somewhere in here, and we just found out about Ant-Man 3 and Captain Marvel 2. So Deadpool 3 and say like the Blade movie will also probably happen somewhere in here too. So number 2, Disney hasn't said anything about when the Deadpool movie's previous licensing deals are up, so right now they couldn't put them on Disney Plus even if they wanted to. But the key to all of this is Once Upon a Deadpool. If you never saw that Deadpool movie, technically it's kind of like a third Deadpool movie, but it's not Deadpool 3. It's just the PG-13 alternate cut of Deadpool 2 with a bunch of different scenes and footage. So it kind of feels like a different movie, especially with all the Fred Savage, Princess Bride parody scenes. There's a scene during that where Deadpool at the beginning literally explains to Fred Savage exactly what the movie is and why he's being censored.
What the Easy now, hey. The only F-bomb we're using around here is Fred Savage. Now, I want you to take a deep breath and listen to me very carefully, Frederick. You're in a PG-13 version of Deadpool 2, which means we only get 2 1 and a glass of white wine.
Are you bleeping yourself?
You bet your voice and little I am.
But right now, they could literally just slap Once Upon a Deadpool up on Disney Plus. It's good to go. But they'd also have to give the same treatment, the same alternate cut, quote unquote, to the first Deadpool movie too, which would take a little bit of work. So no timeline on when that would happen, but based on Ryan Reynolds' posts and his jokes, it sounds like they're figuring that out right now. So number 1, even though Deadpool 3 probably isn't going to get released till at least 2023 or 2024, they're still going to release a rated R theatrical cut initially before they give it the Once Upon a Deadpool treatment. The way Ryan Reynolds talks about Marvel and Kevin Feige, they're excited to do the movie, but the big issue right now, the big sticking point in terms of story, is Marvel's still trying to figure out how they're going to integrate the Deadpool character into the MCU and whether or not all of his future movies will be traditional MCU canon or if they'll just treat them like the New Mutants movie. New Mutants is being released by Disney and Marvel. Eventually, we should add, after getting 6 different release dates, maybe someday we'll get to see that movie. So the movie doesn't really reference any MCU stuff like Avengers Endgame, The Snap, any of the Infinity Saga movies, and the MCU movies in the future won't reference these characters, at least for right now. The thought is that if it's successful enough, Marvel might eventually bring some of these characters back in future X-Men related movies. Right now, Deadpool sounds like his rated R movies like Deadpool 3 will just be their own thing. They'll make jokes about the MCU, reference MCU events like The Snap, Avengers Endgame, make jokes about Iron Man dying like he made jokes about Wolverine dying during Deadpool 2, make Spider-Man jokes. But you won't actually see Deadpool and Spider-Man cross paths or Deadpool and the Avengers together on screen until Deadpool shows up in another PG-13 traditional MCU movie. And when he does, he'll sound and feel more like the Deadpool from Once Upon a Deadpool. Let me know in the comments though, what is the first MCU movie that you want to see Deadpool cross over with in a big way? My early prediction right now is that it probably won't happen till Avengers 5, but he could always show up anywhere. I'm hoping that they surprise us and he just shows up somewhere unannounced. Everyone, click here to watch Hugh Jackman break down all the Marvel Wolverine movies, and click here to learn about Marvel bringing Thanos back in future MCU movies. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, maximum effort.